things, but you have to keep in mind, like if you go to a bank, they're going to recommend a bank product.
Yes.
Right. So there is a bit of a conflict. If you go to somebody independent who might have, might have more kind of, and that goes like if you're thinking about working with a financial advisor or a financial planner, investment advisor, so many different titles, one of the biggest things you need to ask is, how do you get paid?
Okay.
Because the compensation is very different depending on, whether it's commission or, am I only offering products available through this company or whatever. So very important questions to ask too.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I remember we've talked about this when we walked into a bank when we were younger and first starting to get a meaningful amount of money. It was very obvious that they were just trying to sell us mutual funds of that bank.
Yeah.
And it was just super transparent and gross. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, whether that's right for you or wrong, it needs to be acknowledged that that's what they're offering because
they have an incentive.
That's what they have an incentive
right?
off of that. Right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily, it's like going to buy a car. If you go to a Chevy dealer, that's all they're going to sell you is a Chevy. So if you want a Chevy, that's great. Right. Is Chevrolet even a thing still? Yeah. Or a Ford or Tesla, whatever. If that's where you go, that's what they're going to try to sell you.
I think that's a great point though. Cause like if you go to a car dealership, what brand you're looking at because you've already made that choice. But if you go to a bank and they suggest certain portfolios, it's not obvious to you because you're not an expert in this that all of that is directly an interest to that bank where there could be other things that make more sense for you.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to endorse any sort of third party service.
No,
but these things exist now.
Yeah.
You can.
Are they more expensive?
What should someone Google because what are they really called? Like these sort of
robo advisors is kind of the more common term.
Is that the term used for?
Yeah.
How do they get paid generally? I know you don't know. It could be different, but is it just a commission? Is it
no? It's not a commission.
Rate,
each one's a little bit different, but basically you pay a percentage of what your overall assets are, and a lot of them have like a certain. Some of them are actually more subscription based, like you pay X amount.
So it's not performance based.
It's not performance based, and it's not. Yeah, it's not based on either. Because that's the other problem, right? Because part of the industry still is very based on commission, and so it's very much what you buy. In Canada, at least, the regulations are starting to catch up, and there's more transparency over what those commissions and how advisors do get paid. But yeah, no, those robo advice, it tends to be more fee based. If you have $1,000, you pay whatever 1% is your fee or whatever up
even if you end up losing money.
Yeah,
you're still paying.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they are still doing the work.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, if you're losing money, often it's with investing, especially in the markets, it's up and down. You can't really say, well, one year I won, 1 year I lost. It's longer term is when you'd want to really measure your success with an advisor.
And that's why it's important that this is money that is for the long term. It's 100%. Not something you should be ready to take back next year.
Yeah,
right?
if you think
the point is,
if I'm buying a house and I need that money next year,
don't put it in,
right? I mean, you should. The kind of general, I think, guideline is you should have at least a 5-year time horizon before you even think about putting part of that money into the markets, right?
Okay.
That's good to know.
Interesting. And these vehicles you should be using to invest for the first time. So in Canada, we have TFSAs and RRSPs, right?
Yeah.
RRSPs are designed, they're made in a way where you are penalized for taking that money out before your retirement age.
Right.
And I guess just the obvious advice that I just feel should be said is you maximize your use of those vehicles before you start investing in, non-registered
absolutely.
plans.
Yeah.
Is there a U.S. equivalent to a tax-free savings account?
The Roth IRA, I believe, again, I'm not licensed in the States. I'm not as familiar, but from what I understand, the Roth IRA is very similar to a TFSA.
Okay.
In the fact that you don't get a deduction for the money you put into it, but anything that's earned within it is earned tax-free. And I think it's the limits and how much you're allowed to put in, that kind of stuff might be a little bit different.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then the IRA is much more like RRSPs, where if you put it in, you get a deduction of your income, which reduces your current taxes, and then it grows and they're tax deferred until you pull it out down the road.
So it's just a question of when you will pay tax on it, right?
And I mean, that's the one thing where dealing with a financial planner or somebody at credit because if you have, I do my budget and I have $500 a month that I know I can put towards savings, and do I, what different vehicles should I be putting some into an RSP, some into TFSA, or should I put in a lot of that'll depend on where what's your tax rate, what's your marginal tax rate, what's my income, because putting it into an RSP and getting a tax deduction, if your income is really low, it doesn't make sense. You're probably better maybe to put it in the tax-free savings account. Gotcha. Wait till you're, especially if you're early in your career and your earnings aren't quite at the highest, you're better to maybe depending on your situation, wait until you're a bit, more senior, your income's up, and then you can use that deduction room later when your income's higher. Okay. So that is where dealing with a professional, if you can, they can help you with those decisions. I think some robo-advisors have advisors you can still work with, and it's pretty handy to be able to do that if it's through chat
without making some big commitment of handing all your money over to them, right?
Or putting in a super high fee mutual fund or something along those lines. So
okay,
all
right, let's bang out a few more. From Helena, why are tax forms so complicated? Wouldn't the government benefit more by making tax forms better and friendly to the layperson?
Justin.
I know you're not an accountant.
Justin, are you listening?
We don't file it. You're not an accountant. We use an accountant.
But I see all the forms that my accountant gives me to sign, and they are incredibly confusing and sometimes require hours of explaining to me so I understand what the heck they are. And that is because of our more complicated picture, as Ben was saying earlier. That's just what happens.
I'm not sure if the assumption of the question is that the government would benefit because more people would pay their taxes if the forms are simple. But I think the obvious cynical take on this is a lot of people's livelihoods and careers depend on people not being able to file their own taxes.
Yeah. Is
that a fair criticism to some degree? Do you think tax codes are unnecessarily complicated in 2021? Am I boxing you into a... No. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, they are complex. There's no question. And actually, in my opinion, I've worked in both on the Canadian side, and if we think our tax code is complex, the US side of it's even more, the filing requirements and stuff, it can be even more daunting there. But I think whether it's unnecessary, I think, yes, it's easy to say everybody would benefit from it being less complex. It'd be easier. People maybe would be more inclined to do it themselves. Mind you, there's been such advancements in TurboTax and those kind of online things that unless you have, maybe business income or something more complex, simple cases can be done. Even though the forms are complex, if you're doing it online through a service,
I use those services for a long time.
Yeah. And they work well. So, but I think why tax code and why tax forms, everything is so complex is because it wasn't all created at once, right? If you look 50 years ago, 100 years ago, everything's been kind of added, new legislation's passed and it's added. And it's if you're creating a computer program, you're not starting from scratch every time. If you keep adding things to it, then you end up with this kind of cluster.
And they're trying to patch loopholes, they are, right? Yeah. But it's just turning it into this monster.
It's like a computer that needs to be defragmented.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now with an Apple, I don't even think about defragging my computer anymore.
So where is the Apple of tax forms in 2021?
I think what it is, and I know there's actually been commissions and studies in the US on how to simplify tax code. It's probably super interesting for all your listeners, but
no, one person, it is.
One person, yeah. Please make a comment. One nice comment about my view on tax codes. But you'd have to completely start from scratch. That's really what the decision was, is you can't just kind of clean it up. Because there's so many iterations, so many additions. You can't just be if we fix this and fix this, it'll be easier. It's no, you literally have to throw it out and completely start everything from scratch, which would cost a ton of money and take a lot of time. So.
And be complicated just to onboard everyone onto the new system.
And then nobody would be happy with.
But I guess we all agree that we need a socialist revolution to... Is that what you're saying?
Just rip all the papers up. No. Okay, next.
All right, from Ms. Redhead Rapunzel, what's a bogus financial tip you hear all the time that you want to stomp into the ground?
I like that question. Nothing, I won't say anything specific, but I will say there's a lot of anything get rich quick. There's tons of, I see all these, videos and stuff where it's, the guy's making it rain and all you need to do is, and everything, right? You just follow this strategy,
Sure.
we'll teach you how to trade options or buy this,
Buy my book.
Yeah, buy my
follow
book.
my 3 simple steps.
$9.99 a month, and we'll be guaranteed
Yeah. I get those ads.
Yeah,
on
I mean,
YouTube.
that stuff drives me crazy because you think like, well, I mean, if it's too good to be true, probably is. Number two, like if I created a foolproof system that could guarantee to make you money, would I sell you a subscription for $9.99, or would I just go to the Bahamas and use that system and make myself a ton of money? Like, like what? Like,
you wouldn't want to just share it with the masses?
Yeah,
for
like
free?
out of the goodness of my heart, I mean, for a low monthly price.
Yeah.
Like,
That's a
so
good point.
those types of things just
Those channels drive me nuts
they,
too.
yeah, because and I've always felt like you get rich slowly. Like that's that's really how it's done for most of us anyway, right? So yeah, I'd say
I like
that's
that
one.
model.
Yeah,
That's like more
Get rich slowly.
aspirational. It's realistic.
Yeah.
Get rich slowly.
Get rich slowly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Get a tattoo of that. I like that.